And the fact that he's controlling the FTC, FCC, SEC, we are FUC-K'd.
We saw it.
Oh.
If you're listening, Angela and Andrew just got in a fist fight.
Oh, Native Lampard winning in the image. We won.
What we are failing at is you're communicating that we are in our last days, but you're acting like it's just another day on the job.
You have to figure out a way to cut through the overwhelm. And I think the only way you do that is with empathy.
This dude is talking to Zelensky like a gangster. He's dealing with Gaza. They're like, hey.
He said, hey, welcome home, everybody. I'm glad you're here to my side piece. What? In order for you to survive and to maintain your voice, you gotta build your own.
I wish you felt the kind of way about it.
Would you go to the State of the Union?
I'm stealing this from Dave Chappelle when he talked about...
this is about to go left. When you say Clarence Thomas is a hoochie, it turns out America's not a hoochie.
Native Land Pod is a production of iHeartRadio in partnership with Reason Choice Media.
Welcome.
Welcome home, y'all. This is episode 68 of Native Land Pod, and I'm going to tell you why I'm so happy, because my co-hosts are here in person with me, and for a change, they are in uniform. You know, they're always out of uniform, these two.
Please.
And
Don't
finally,
fall for the disinformation.
It's abundant everywhere.
Thank you to Dr. Yelvin.
Yeah. Well, I got to do the personal side.
Yes.
This is my
Don't get in trouble,
mother-in-law.
In love.
My mother-in-law.
Yes.
I said and you filled into the sentence for me.
I always help you.
Dr. Caroline Yelding coming to us from the great city of Daphne, Alabama, down in Baldwin County, Alabama. Jay's mom, I love her not just because she's my mother-in-law. I love her as a human, just as a person. But she thought about us as she watches every episode, maybe more than once, I'm not sure, just as my mother does, who I love you too, Ma. But when we did the whole nomination and going for these awards, she was very kind to go and have these awesome sweaters made, y'all.
I just want to ask her, does she think I'm this color? I think you should have got this color.
You know what? She
didn't
even say where they were.
He just randomly put them in there.
I just put them in a bag and mailed it. I didn't share. I was like, this
we
color
all wear
would
the
look
same
good.
size?
No, his
there
was a different
only
size.
one XL.
Yeah, so ours were the same. He just mailed it. But thank you to your mother-in-law, honestly, because we really appreciate it. It was so kind
and it's
of her to do that.
This is
legit. It's nice.
Created
fancy.
by RJ's cousin. His
well,
company.
thank you, RJ's cousin,
Thanks
a family
to Jay's
affair.
whole family.
All right, I don't want to keep the folks waiting because every week is a jam-packed show, and I just think that's what happens during this administration. They flood the zone, and we are yet again trying to catch confetti. So what you got, Andrew? What we talking about?
Well, it's already been a wild week. I know we won't spend a bunch of time on it, but I want to talk about Joy Reid, our good friend. And then, of course...
Turn the TV off.
Well, not yet. Not what we
No, I'm saying because of what happened with Joy.
I'm messing with you. And then finally, would love to get into some of these budget numbers and this ridiculous package the Republicans just passed.
What you got, Ans?
Well, I want to talk about the budget, too.
Yeah.
I want to talk about what's going on Capitol Hill. I want to talk about if Democrats in Congress should be going to the State of the Union to watch a fascist lie to you for an hour, or if they should be doing their own thing.
Yeah.
Don't bury the lead. Don't bury the lead.
That's a good question. I want to talk about this week. Donald Trump met with his cabinet for the first time. And there was an uninvited guest. I should say an unelected guest.
A non-member of the cabinet.
At the cabinet meeting. And obviously, I have a lot to say about my dear sister friend, Joy Reid, leaving. So we'll get into that. And last week, we promised you that we were going to talk about local elections. We got a great question on that. So we're going to get to all your questions, too. So a jam-packed show. Stay tuned, guys. So, yeah, I think we want to, since we're going to start with the budget, I remember you saying that you wanted to talk about Medicaid. I know I have questions for you about that. As you know, my mother's on Medicaid. And I think you pulled some sound for us. So it's the Dem presser. Is that what it is? Yeah.
So Democrats held a presser right after, actually, this was right before the budget vote. And also, which part of the budget vote? Because there was some nonsense and some shenanigans that happened. Like, what's really going on Capitol Hill?
This is not a reality show. This is not a joke. This is not politics as usual. It's a matter of life and death. And so we will stand with the American people. Stand with them today, stand with them tomorrow, stand with them next week, stand with them next month, stand with them this year, stand with them next year, stand with the American people until victory is won, this budget is defeated, and America is restored. So it's our honor as House Democrats to be joined today by three incredible Americans whose quality of life depends on all of us stopping this reckless Republican budget, which is a betrayal of the American people.
My name is Mary Beth Cochran, and I'm from Canton, North Carolina, where I'm still recovering from the devastation of Hurricane Helene in September. I'm a proud member of Moms Rising and a constituent of Representative Chuck Edwards. I have custody of 4 of my grandchildren, ages 10, 12, 15, and 16, as their parents couldn't care for them due to addiction, domestic violence, and homelessness. I'm here today to urge lawmakers to put families over billionaires and reject any cuts to the programs hardworking families like mine rely on.
Republicans in Congress are looking high and low for ways to pay for another round of tax handouts for billionaires like Elon Musk. Yes. And their eyes are locked in on Medicaid. Yes. Millionaires and billionaires do not need any more handouts. Amen. And federal lawmakers should not be entertaining the thought of ripping health care away from millions of people like me in order to pay for this upside-down tax plan. Virginia is one of 9 states with automatic trigger language that says if the federal government goes back on its promise and reduces funding for Medicaid expansion even by 1%, then the entire program ends and everyone in the expansion population loses our health care. That is not only wrong as a matter of public policy, but it is also cruel.
Wow.
Yeah.
I have a lot of questions for you.
Well, I appreciated the speakers who basically kept reiterating, you have a stereotype of who you think are the beneficiaries of this healthcare. But people like me, that first speaker began by saying, but people like me. And she was intentional with those words because I think as a constituent, she knows as well what they're trying to communicate, which is they think it's a bunch of broke Black folk who make bad health decisions and consume far too much, greasy food. But the statistics tell us that 1 in every 5 persons in this country is a beneficiary of Medicaid. That's expansive. Across these United States, and of that 5%, 4 in 10 children, 8 in 10 children who are poor are recipients of this program. Y'all, when it comes to our seniors who are in assisted living facilities, yes, over 60% of them are relying on Medicaid to take care of the expenses associated with it. So what's crazy is that those stealing from these people and taking away their health care is one thing, but now you're going to relocate that cost onto their children. So you're not talking about just elderly folks who are out of the system. Now you're taking parents out of the workplace, out of the school place to now tend to needs that are no longer met by the Medicaid coverage. This is a sham. They ought to be ashamed of themselves, but they are party beyond shame right now.
But here's my issue, Angela. I just feel like these people who are going to get harmed by this, a lot of them voted for this. And so my challenge with this, even though I have people in my family who are going to be directly impacted by this, my challenge with these people, you wanted somebody else to feel that way. You were fine for somebody else to make that sacrifice. The challenge comes when it knocks on your front door. And so now we're seeing, clips of these town halls across the country where they're being impacted. And I just want to scream, what the F word did you think? I didn't say the actual word because your mother-in-law is watching. But honestly, I mean, with all my spirit, what the F did you think was going to happen? And shame on you for being okay with it happening to other people.
Yeah, it is remarkably frustrating. And I think bringing in the spiritual component of this, we also can't wish harm on other people. Like, I want people to learn their lesson, but I don't want them to be harmed because I know them being harmed means we're going to be harmed so much worse.
Ping pong. Yeah.
So it's just like, I wish that people would just consider their neighbors when they're considering who they're going to support. So when we talk about these programs that are going to be impacted for these tax cuts, we're talking an $880 billion cut to Medicaid. That goes to serve 72 million people in this country. That's 1 in 5 Americans. SNAP, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, we're talking a $230 billion cut, which helps 42 million people, or more than 1 in 8 Americans. And these are cuts that are going to adversely impact millions of children who didn't have anyone to go and vote or couldn't go vote for them. So they relied on everyone else to go and vote on their behalf. And I think that's the thing that we have to remember. So we were just looking up these numbers before we started the show. It's the top 10% of income earners in this country that will be receiving a tax break. I think the irony here is the top 10% only make $228,000. There's some parts all over the country where that is rich. In New York, in DC, in Seattle, in LA, that is San Francisco. That's not enough to really make a dent in much.
Yeah.
But for people who are just barely making it on minimum wage, a below livable wage job, and trying to make ends meet by relying on government assistance, I can only imagine the sister that talked about what would happen in Virginia if there was even a 1% cut. That eviscerates that program. And I think that we have to continue to educate people even when the thing doesn't knock at their front door. Maybe compassion will knock at at door.
Yeah.
But see, these are the people who get squeezed.
I'm trying. I'm waking up every day and praying. Can you tell?
But honestly, we have to start feeling that way. And I think a lot of people don't. I think you're right. Because a part of me is, I'm stealing this from Dave Chappelle when he talked about how we're getting a really because he said we're getting a really good look at each other.
Yeah.
And he said, with the opioid crisis, like, wow, we're really getting a good look at each other. Because he said, I look at these, white people on these drugs and I don't care either, and he was talking about how they looked at our communities when we were being ravaged by crack cocaine. Right. Heroin. Exactly.
Yeah.
And so we can't keep saying, well, white folks, y'all voted for it. That's what y'all get. It's like,
it don't work that way.
I think civilization has been there since the beginning of time, though. Since the beginning of time, people have been civilization, period. That you look out for you first, yours and your own. And then beyond
am looking
that,
out for us because we get hurt the worst.
I completely
by
get
far.
It.
So they benefit from us.
And my argument
out.
on the reason why public health ought to be greater public policy for the nation is because your sickness can impact my well-being. So, for instance, you don't get measles shots, or you're an anti-vaxxer, you don't get those things. But your children are sitting next to mine in the schools.
Yeah.
How about that?
And so then I get sick, or you coughing. You're not doing it the appropriate way and not covering. So germs are moving through the air, and then I get sick. So it's one thing for you to make a decision and you be the only person impacted by your bad judgment, if that's what we want to call it.
Yeah.
But in this case, what you do directly impacts me.
Completely. And I wonder when I'm looking at this budget, wondering how they're going to pay for these things. I promise you, I thought this was the most ridiculous thing. This week, Donald Trump has pretty much opened the gates to everybody who wants to come. All you need is $5 million. Take a listen.
$5 million.
Take a listen.
We're going to be selling a gold card. You have a green card. This is a gold card. We're going to be putting a price on that card of about $5 million, and that's going to give you green card privileges plus. It's going to be a route to citizenship. And wealthy people will be coming into our country by buying this card. They'll be wealthy, and they'll be successful, and they'll be spending a lot of money and paying a lot of taxes and employing a lot of people. And we think it's going to be extremely successful.
So you know who has $5 million? Embezzlers, drug dealers, people in child sex trafficking
people
circles.
that got 88 felony counts.
Right.
Trump's people.
Right. Exactly.
But the thing is, what I think that everyone needs to know is America's for sale.
Yes.
America is for sale. What's happening right now is there's not some revolution happening where, Doge is doging and he's going in to find all these cuts. He's lying about the cuts he's finding. He's had to retract the things that he's finding. And Donald Trump is telling you on every side that this thing is for sale. We used to say Clarence Thomas is a hoochie. It turns out America's not a hoochie.
Right.
America's not a hoochie. And the people who call him out on it are in harm's way because he's decided he's going to be the chair or the de facto chair, the real chair of the Kennedy Center, the de facto chair of the FTC, the FCC, and the SEC. So now people that are regulated by the FCC, I don't know, like our friend Joy Reid.
Right. And now
all of a sudden you're in harm's way. If you hold this administration accountable, you're on the chopping block. You will not be supported or uplifted by your network. Mm-hmm. They're gonna turn the TV off on you. So we gonna turn the TV off on y'all. Yeah. And I really
credentials taken, deciding who can cover you.
Yeah,
that's incredible.
It's
huge.
Crazy. One, when
it's
they
huge.
kicked the Associated Press out of the White House, then
kicked them out because they did not change their maps.
Call Gulf of
Mexico, Gulf of America,
Gulf of America,
right. Which is utterly ridiculous. And the fact that he's controlling the FTC, FCC, SEC, we are FUC-K'd, okay? Because we are going to feel the direct impact. And I'm glad you brought up Joy, Angela, because honestly, as awful as this is, and as a double middle finger to the networks for not supporting her, I have to say a part of me breathes a bit of a sigh of relief. I'm concerned about her being on air at this time. If Joy were on air, because Donald Trump and his minions. She'd be
an enemy of the state by Trump.
Yes. And I have to say that the right-wing people, I've been attacked by right-wing folks, Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly, all those people, and the network did not offer me any support, any security. Yeah. I don't know that they would have really honored and protected Joy Reid the way that she was disrespected by them. It's a great indication. Don't watch where you wouldn't be hired. So I don't think turn off the TV.
You're saying turn the TV off like the Kendrick song after he says, mustard. Right. And I think what I really I hope we can dive in here for just a moment.
Yeah.
You guys, I have been so frustrated by the people who have said, why would you turn the TV off when we still have people who look like us there?
Who?
Well, there are people on every network, on every major network. I picked that up.
Yeah.
On every major network
they
who
not
look
like
us. And I think, to me, we cannot be so self-serving that we're self-sabotaging. What I want to make sure that we as a people understand right now is that in order for you to survive and to maintain your voice, you got to build your own. Mm-hmm. You just do. So I really believe our highest service for your highest good is telling you you are not safe. You are not safe. America, you are not safe. And anybody on a platform, on a major network, you're not safe.
Right.
You're actually next. If you're speaking truth to power, you are next.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure that our folks know it's not about like or dislike or if you say what I would say or not. I love you enough to say you are not safe. Start building your own.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Turn the TV off. I'm not going to make a caveat for if there's one program or the other, or if there's one commentator or the other. We're living in a fascist society.
Yeah.
That doesn't even make sense to me. Go somewhere where you can tell the people the truth.
Yeah.
Thanks, Lolo, for sending your clips.
They do make a difference to me. It does make a difference to me who the people are and what position they occupy at a place. I don't have the same reaction to, for instance, some of the other, one of the other cancellations that had taken place.
Yeah.
The reason I take issue with this one is because Joy was living, doing, breathing,
True.
and putting out into the world for our own digestment the truth. She was the bringer of
Absolutely,
truth, right?
Yeah.
On television. And there's not a lot of that. And the public,
they've erased it all.
The public way in which they did what they did to Joy is a shot over the bow to anyone else who thinks that they may want to act free on TV. Mm-hmm. Don't get it twisted.
Yeah.
Your freedom
The
has
corporate
caveats.
boardroom is still in charge.
Yeah.
They've never relinquished their power.
But
Now,
the corporate boardroom isn't in charge because they would do what makes sense for advertisers. Who is in charge is the de facto chair of the FCC. That is why Donald Trump would tweet or post on social media finally about Joy. They are trying to bend to the will of Trump, yes, because they think it makes business sense.
they're also not being pressed very hard to do that bending. I mean,
At
some
all.
of them
he
are.
went like this. He said,
He blew.
That's it.
Then they were a house of cards and they came tumbling down, which also tells me, and we ought to be clear about this, to your point around build your own.
Build
These folks are
your
not invested in us.
At all.
Yeah.
They're invested toward an end, and that end you best believe is going to be in their best interest,
You're a
or they wouldn't be there.
transaction.
And that's it.
You're there
it's a
until you
trade.
don't make sense to them anymore. You're there until you get unsafe for them. You're there until you make them uncomfortable.
Key.
That's
key.
it.
If you
Until make them
compromise
uncomfortable.
any piece of what they feel that they have accredited to themselves, you're out, and there's no second guessing it. If you take from me,
You know, Andrew, I want to say this too. And Tiff, I don't know if you guys saw this piece, but our friend Ellie Mistal, who's been on our show, wrote this amazing piece about Joy Reid and the nation. And what I appreciate about that piece so much is how earnest he was.
Yeah.
Mhm.
He talked about feeling like he needed to cut his hair to be on TV. And Joy told him, no, you keep your beautiful black hair. He's like, obviously it's great, but so she's talking about this afro. And the other thing that he talked about was her making him feel like he was safe on air and that he didn't just have to come on to talk about black issues. He said there aren't a lot of hosts and folks like Joy. That is one thing that we absolutely have to understand. And the other thing that I really want to say is people have got to know that in this environment, if you're going to get up and say you're speaking for the culture, no strings attached, no, what am I trying to say? No caveats. Like you're unabashedly yourself and you're an anchor or host on one of those networks. It's just a lie.
Yeah.
You have to. Joy herself will attest to this. There are certain things they wouldn't let her cover.
Yes.
So don't act like what we're saying is far-fetched. There are standards and practices. There are things that make
there were plenty of things. They literally would go comb through after Tucker Carlson attacked me. They would comb through my show. I was told I couldn't mention Tucker's name on my show before. There are stories that I couldn't cover. And the challenge is, I just want to take a second and say this isn't even, if you just take personality out of it, because it's not even a diss to anybody.
No.
But if you just look at that 7 o'clock hour, this is a 24-hour news channel. Okay. So God forbid there is breaking news in the 7 o'clock hour because there is not a single journalist who will be able to cover it. Let's just say that Zelensky yields and says, okay, we're going, and he's having a press conference. The NBC and MSNBC have split. So you're not going to a foreign correspondent. Yeah. Now you are solo on that desk with millions, maybe millions, probably hundreds of thousands of people watching. And you have to walk them through a very complicated set of what's happening on the Eastern Bloc. Your opinion, your commentating is so less important if you are not a bona fide journalist who has navigated a newsroom, who is aware of what's happening domestically and across the globe, that you can walk your viewers who are tuning into you to trust you to do that. Joy would do that beautifully and brilliantly. She was able to give her opinion. And she was also able to inform people. I certainly tried to do that on my show, every Saturday. And there was breaking news on Saturday mornings. Oh, Tiffany, you had this whole show planned, but an apartment building just collapsed in Florida. We got to go to that reporter live. It takes training to know how to do that, to walk people through that. And they don't have it. So what that says to me, not only do they not care about us, they don't care about none of y'all. They don't even care about the viewers. And that's not a diss to anybody. Like Michael Steele, he knows, like, I'm cool. Alicia Menendez, like she's my former coworker. So it's not a diss to either of them, but it's just a classic observation of what news has become. It has become entertainment. They have people on air discussing things they have no business. You have never worked in politics. You have never worked on a campaign. You've never covered a campaign, but you are on a political panel discussing domestic policy and foreign policy.
I wish you felt the kind of way about it.
Well, speaking of feeling a kind of way, I think the other thing that we got to address is this joint session that is normally a State of the Union if it's before March, but since this is going to be delivered on March 4th at the invitation of somebody, Speaker Mike Johnson, Donald Trump is going to deliver a State of the Union address. And we were just talking about Joy. Joy will be sorely missed on that panel.
Yes.
Where she breaks things down. But at the same time, I'm worried about the optics of that chamber. I don't know what he's going to say, but I know most of it's not going to be true. I won't say I know because, they're a little litigious. So I'll say I will bet my bottom dollar that most of it won't be true.
I mean, based on evidence, based on things he's done before. Yeah.
But I think what I'm really wrestling with right now, y'all know, the CBC is where I grew up professionally. And I am hoping that the Congressional Black Caucus, that the Progressive Caucus, that the Hispanic Caucus, that the KPAC, the Congressional Asian Pacific American Caucus, and the Democratic Caucus overall do not go to sit to be lied to for an hour and let a fascist tell him what he's gonna do.
Yeah,
I really I cannot. I don't want to. I can't. I want to see a half-empty chamber.
It should have been the whole chamber. If they had any dignity about the offices that they hold, all 435 of them.
Yep.
And they would never have extended an invitation to this man in the first place to come and speak before the first branch of government, the legislative, which existed before the executive. They wouldn't have had him come there. They lack self-respect. They lack fealty to the Constitution. And quite frankly, they can't be in any way respectful of their voters, as has been shown through these town hall meetings.
Yeah.
Many of them are out of sync with the people who sent them there, all because their only goal right now in life, it seems, is to bend the knee to Donald Trump.
Yeah.
But I'm mad mostly at the entirety of the Congress.
Yeah.
Because when your branch is attacked, you fight back.
What do you guys think he's going to say?
A bunch of lies, for sure.
Yeah,
I presume.
What do we think he's gonna tout? Like, is he gonna tout Doge?
America safer.
Doge is remarkably unpopular.
Immigrants
right now.
have gotten out.
But I think this is the thing about the United States. When at this joint session, when he is speaking, he's not just speaking to that chamber. He's not just speaking to America. He's speaking to the globe.
Yep.
And I think his global message is America first, America strong. We are dominating. So he will present a fantastical imagery of America, which we know something about, just a fallacy of what's happening here. So I think he's going to present an image of strength. He's going to talk about, even though he got his ass handed to him with these tariffs, I think he's going to tout that as though it's a victory. I think he's going to tout all of these draconian policies he's introduced through executive orders that the Republican caucus has greased the wheels for him to usher through. He's going to tout this budget. I think he will attempt to show some muscle with China. I think he will genuflect to Putin. The fact that he has completely reversed U.S. policy on the war in Ukraine.
In the truth.
And this is one
one
slither of area where some.
It's okay.
If you're listening, Angela and Andrew just got in a fist fight. Now I just have to bring it up.
Andrew threw his phone at me because he wants
sick
to
of
wear
this
my
phone. I had
color
to throw
shirt.
it away. And throw it down.
But he's reversed U.S. policy, so I wonder if the Republicans in the chamber will stand up and applaud that.
Of course they will.
Yeah,
they've been a rubber stamp.
Well, they've been speaking out against that. Well, that's not our policy, and it's like, yeah, but y'all gonna bend the knee.
I don't think he will go substantively into it. I think he will say. I think he will harp on the mineral rights and the fact we got a bargain or a deal that is upcoming. But the substance of that fight, of that Russia's war against Ukraine, is that he won't give it the time of day because it will not sell to to the majority of Americans' ears the story that he wants to tell about Ukraine.
Yeah.
I think he sees it as a transaction, a deal, money to be made.
Yes.
This dude is talking
Gaza,
to Zelensky
too.
like a gangster.
Yes.
He's dealing with
Zelensky is the
Gaza
gangster now.
as if he's a gangster. Like, hey, you give us 50% of your country's richest
Right.
mineral rights, then we'll talk about this whole securing you from Russia.
So let me
Where they
ask
do that at?
you
Right.
this. Why haven't the Republicans said much about how broad sweeping these executive actions are? Like this man now, not only are the executive actions broad sweeping, but as of, when we recorded this podcast, yesterday, he was told he violated court orders, 3 different courts in an hour and a half, told him he was in violation. I haven't heard any Republicans speak up to say something about it. So not only are they bowing down, bending the knee, all of that, being a rubber stamp, they're also not pushing back on things that weakens the legislative branch.
Well, if they won't defend themselves, they're definitely not going to push back against his exertion of executive power. Problem is that this is a genie you will not put back in the bottle.
Yeah.
When that power is given to the presidency, future presidents perceive it as their power too, and they'll point to their predecessors' exercise of it as being legitimate for their exercise of it. This is. But
their lack of pushback is also weakening the judicial branch.
But they don't care.
I understand. I'm just saying.
Nor do I think they believe in the principle of co-equal unless a Democrat is in the White House or hold one of the branches.
No, when it's a Democrat in the White House, they're like, you're actually lesser than us.
This is what I'm saying. I think they speak with forked tongue and they act with forked tongue.
Yes.
But even the idea that
forked tongue is a bar. I appreciate that.
Yes. Even the idea that this week we saw 3 separate judges, hold the line. I again will keep reiterating, I do not think the courts are going to hold. I do think we are looking at the judiciary erode.
And if it erodes, then we are looking at an all-powerful executive. And the idea of checks and balances will cease to exist any longer. Because if the legislative branch cannot hold accountable, can't defend their turf, and can't make the president do anything, because his principle, what will throw us into the crisis is him saying, send your army to enforce it. And he'll tell the legislature, you send your army to enforce how I spend this money.
So, Andrew, I got to ask him this, Tiff. It's an elected official question. Andrew. You are the only one here who's been in elected office. Right now, it's a hot debate on Capitol Hill on whether or not any sitting Democrat should go to the State of the Union. Would you go to the State of the Union?
No.
That's a good question.
I want to know why.
Really?
I would not, but I
Say
would.
more.
But I would have also been off the boat several weeks ago to appropriateness, decorum, bestowing the normal respects of the office. And why do I say that? The moment that the president decided that he was going to encroach upon the legislative branch's ability to manage the country's purse, and he decided money that was passed and signed into law that he would withhold, redirect, demolish entire departments, you've now come on our side. You've crossed that red line.
Yeah.
And the only way it gets held is that we will draw your agenda to a close before you've even gotten started until you recognize this difference and reinstate what has been passed into law.
So based on what you're hearing, the American people say, Democrats aren't doing enough. They're not holding the line. They're not doing da-da-da. Somebody posted the other day, this is a mild tangent, but not much. Somebody posted the other day, it's interesting that a moment ago, they were just two sides of the same coin. But now you know exactly where to go to call on for help.
Absolutely.
And I was like, that's a really good point.
Touché.
Yes.
Leonard, who I fight with about stuff all the time, was like, but that shouldn't mean that they can't be held accountable. So to that end, the people in Democrats districts, Democratic districts, when they're saying, I don't see you fighting for me, you seem like this is politics as usual. What do you think they're getting wrong? And what would you say to Democrats on the Hill to do differently?
I said that Donald Trump talks and acts with forked tongue. The Democrats are appearing to act with forked tongue, which means this is the greatest threat to democracy on one hand. But on the next hand, y'all skinning and grinning. That the evening's reception, there's photos of you all acting like the day didn't happen. And yesterday didn't happen. So if you want the American people, the public, to believe you what you say, then I need to believe that you believe it.
Yeah.
And if when I look at you, you don't look like you believe what you just told me, or else you would have comported yourself differently. People aren't stupid, not by a mile. They may not understand the machinations of the process all the way through, but they know what truthful looks like. They know what a lie is, whether it's spoken or whether they visually observe it. So I just think where we are failing, where the party is failing, where Democratic leadership is failing, is not in where their heart is and where their advocacy is and where they would have come down on these issues. What we are failing at is you're communicating that we are in our last days, but you're acting like it's just another day on the job.
That's
Okay,
a bar.
it's a
we in
hell
our
of a bar.
last
It just
days,
won't-
but
that-
you acting
it
like
won't
it's
hunt.
another day on
Just
the
another
job.
day.
It won't hunt.
living in the hood.
It won't
Just
hunt.
another day
Oh, wait.
around the way.
Can we practice something that we said we were going to do? Dun, 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 dun.
You didn't give us. We didn't know we were ready yet.
I know, because it was supposed to be a
Ready?
look. It was
She
supposed
just
to be
made you
a look.
ready.
Okay, ready.
Okay.
Dun, 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 dun. You supposed to do it.
That's what y'all are here for.
Okay.
Anyway, no, wait. Okay, but Tiff. So
Yes.
Andrew answered as elected official advising like colleagues. When you look at what's happening, I know regularly you're saying, I am overwhelmed by this. It's too much. Like, I think it's already too late. What do you expect for people that you paid as a taxpayer? Some you may have voted for, some you may have supported in other ways, some you may have just platformed because you agree with them on one issue, but not everything else, or you disagree with them. But just in the role they're in, what are you expecting for them? Like, what is the thing they need to do that is markedly different than what they're doing right now?
You mean the Democrats?
Well, unless you want to talk about Republicans, what they need to do
No,
different?
I mean, because honestly, people have asked me this before, and I'm like, if you say Democrat to me, if you say midterms to me, like, because to me, the system is part of the problem. The infrastructure of this system is part of the problem. I am not interested in repairing, restoring, working with the Democratic Party. I am only interested in harm reduction for the people. And if that means obliterate, blow up this whole system to rebuild something new, I'd be okay with that. No diss anybody, but I'm okay if the Democratic Party falls completely. Like, because then that means then we have to build something new. And as you've often reminded us, Angela, white supremacy is bipartisan. And so I think that, I think the message that they took from these last elections were, we were messing around with these N-words and the LGBTQ community and the trans community and, all the other people of color. And we need to go back and try to get these white conservatives again. Like, they just have such a hard on for that group. They didn't walk away and think, oh, we should have drilled down. We should have danced harder with the folks who brung us. We should have given the up and coming voter, the aspirational voter, something to latch onto. We should have inspired them. We should have led with our convictions. They didn't do that. They walked the middle of the road and became political roadkill. So I am not so interested in uplifting them. I am completely open to ideas. Angela's leading the charge for us to try to figure out ways for us to work together to make sure that all people are not subject to the harm that's going to come out of this administration. And I got to tell y'all, if you watch Game of Thrones, you'll understand it's going to be the long night. Like, this is not going to be a bad 4 years and then we go back. I think this is going to be a long night of generational devastation for us. So I don't know that I look at the Dems for that. But I want you to me, you biased. I want to know your opinion on this too.
I think that
if you were still ED of the Progressive Black Caucus, I know you would tell them, no, don't go.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I would say I would do a couple things. One is I would tell them to platform their guests. So, at the State of the Union, for those watching at home or listening at home or wherever you listen, for those who don't know this, at the State of the Union, members of Congress normally bring a guest with them. And their guest is normally central to something that's happening right now. So I'm sure a lot of the members are going to be bringing federal workers who were laid off or who took the payout. A kid or
Democratic members,
yes, a kid who I don't even know what the other side be doing. They'll be like, I brought somebody that arrested the last illegal definitely a January 6th partner. And then also I brought the one this man from ICE who, sorry about his accent, but that's what came to me. I brought this man from ICE who put that last illegal who broke all them laws in Guantanamo Bay, and he gonna celebrate him. But the Democrats will likely bring someone who's been impacted by these crazy cuts. And so I would tell them, don't just bring them and put them in a press release. Go somewhere else and put them in position for the world to hear their stories.
Yeah.
Because until people hear how these things impact humanity, one story at a time, people just don't care. Yeah. They're aloof. They're overburdened by all the crazy news. It's just like, whatever, it's too much. I'm like Tip, I'm drinking out of fire. I'm just overwhelmed. So we have to figure out a way to cut through the overwhelm. And I think the only way you do that is with empathy. You have to tap into people's empathy. And I got to hold on to hope, because if I don't, I'll die, that people still have that. And I think the last thing I would say is definitely don't go. And wherever you go, I think you either wear red because it's a code red, or you wear black because it is the funeral of democracy.
It's solemn.
You know,
I don't think people gonna watch.
I don't know that people are gonna watch,
I
but
think
I
there
think
will
that
be
they're,
folks who will absorb it because of the entertainment value. You
They
talk
gonna see
about
that in clips on social media.
but Donald Trump is a performer, and a lot of folks follow him
He's a good performer.
to go to the show. They want to see the show. What I hope that Democrats would do is not cede all of the time. Yes, Donald Trump takes up a lot of space, but if people don't hear what the alternative view and vision is, they'll drink from a mirage because somebody's offering something. But if you're not offering anything, people won't quote you hook, line, sinker on your policy. But when you're explaining what it is that you're intending to do, they're going to get a feeling. And that feeling's either going to be this guy's looking out for me and he sees me, or this dude's on another planet. He's not for us. He's not like us. He's not whatever that is. Voters make those decisions in a moment's time. Right. But all the time with elected officials, that with their quote unquote leaders. And so we have to believe what we're saying.
Yeah.
And if we believe it, then we got to act like we believe it.
I wonder if some of this is psychological.
All of
like
it is.
I mean like the inability to respond, like, oh my God, like for me, I'm just like, my humanity's like, oh my God, this can't be happening. Like every time I'm like, this really can't be happening. Like we might lose every platform ability to communicate with people we need to mobilize. Like we really could be in a really, really bad situation. Like we are in a bad situation, but it can get much, much worse. Yeah. So I think some of what they're doing it's like a subconscious, if I treat this as normal, maybe it'll go back to normal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's a brain.
Let's just get through this budget reconciliation process. We're gonna have votes as long as we can vote.
They're responding like the average American is allowed to respond.
Yeah.
But when you sit at the helm and you're looked to for leadership, when your moment of leadership shows, you better be there to meet it.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I think people have gotten the wrong idea around what public service is and what you're actually there to do.
Yeah.
That they're putting their tea leaf, their finger up to the wind, see which way it's going, and then that informs how it is you choose to show up.
I think that's true.
You have the pedestrian instinct where the attacks are coming from so many places, I'm just going to go turtle.
Yeah.
And when I come out of it, it will be different. That is a survival mechanism. We have that as humans, as Homo sapiens. But leaders have to exercise something different. It doesn't mean that you won't be reacted by what happens and you won't have a very human reaction, but your rebound time better be a hell of a lot quicker. Because we don't have days, times, hours to waste to figure out a message or to get over your hurt feeling because the activists are demanding you do more. They're afraid.
It's the people too. And the other thing is on this, I want people at home who are watching to know Andrew is not just a former elected official. He's also a former organizer and a damn good one. He started his solo pods this week. And his solo pod was on how to organize. He's going to do a whole boot camp and training.
I love it.
Because we don't know how y'all going to be able to organize at home, but he going to make sure that you have all the tools for old school and new school.
And the ones that are in your lane.
Yeah.
You're uncomfortable this way. We want to envelop the multitude of ways in which you can get them, but there will be no excuses.
He's on Monday.
Well, speaking of, because you're talking about organizing and a lot of people are concerned about like, what do you do at the grassroots? We got a great question that we didn't get to last week and we promised we'd get to that this week. So thank you for your question. Let's roll the question on local elections because I thought that was a really good one.
Hey, Native Land Pod. My name is Andrea. I am in Fort Worth, Texas, originally from Cleveland, Ohio. Shout out to the land, but living in Fort Worth for about 9 years now. And my question is this. The city of Fort Worth is the fastest growing city, the 4th largest city in Texas, and the 12th largest city in America. Our local elections are coming up. This means city council, mayor, and the school board. And my question is, what should our asks, what should our demands be of our locally elected officials to impact, change, and reduce the harm that's going on in Washington, D.C.? Is there anything that we can ask of our locally elected officials, so our city council, our mayor, school board.
I love that question. And I think this is a great panel to answer that question. Andrew, I want to come to you on this because I think you're best positioned to answer this. But I just want to give the audience a little context about why this matters. So voter turnout in local elections is actually really small. And not just, I hate when people say off election years, because there are never any off election years. There are always elections happening. So voter turnout in the United States is much lower anywhere than any other, than most other countries. So we have around 60% voter participation in presidential elections, 40% in midterm elections. And turnout soars up to 90% in countries with mandatory voting and reaches around 70% in overall developed countries. So we are lagging behind, and we're suffering the consequences of that. Now, after decades of political polarization, gerrymandering, voter suppression, et cetera, most of the people elected now did not face a competitive election. So I looked at an analysis that the New York Times did, and this is just on Congress. More than 9,000 congressional and state legislative primaries elections were held last year. On average, just 57,000 people voted for politicians in the U.S. House primaries who went on to win the general election. So that means a small fraction of the more than 700,000 Americans, each of those winners now represents that tiny bucket. So we're going through minority rule.
A district with 250,000.
Isn't that crazy?
Precisely. A third of the current members of the House, this Congress that we're dealing with right now, ran unopposed in their primary. So they didn't even have someone to run against them. The lawmakers who do face primaries, as you all have witnessed, bore witness to, they are partisan hacks. They are right-wing extremists. They are MAGA cultists. And so those people actually find a path, i.e. Marjorie Taylor Greene, i.e. Lauren Boebert. They find a path to have a direct impact on what our life looks like. Only 15 to 27% of eligible voters across the country cast a ballot for their local elections in 2018. And that number has continued to go down. Voter turnout in 2022 for elections was the second highest for a non-presidential election year because I think people were, it was coming off a year of COVID. People were inside. But my point is, this is still talking about, right. And this is talking about congressional elections. When you get to city council in Fort Worth, there are over 35 people running for the city council for a 10-city seat. The numbers of people who cast ballots for that are even fewer. So my point is, that is where you have a unique opportunity to make your needs and your wants heard.
That's right.
Because you're dealing with a smaller pool of people and you can be the loudest voice in the room to make sure those candidates hear you. I worked on a campaign in Baltimore and there's an extremely high amount of returning citizens who live in the state of Maryland. And so a lot of the formerly incarcerated individuals who prefer to be referred to as returning citizens, they're so powerful in number that if you're running for the city of Baltimore, you have to pass through them.
Sure.
They hold a candidates forum and it's very organized and they are active. And so I really appreciate that and honor that. But to her question, because I don't want to go without answering.
You've answered it and I thought
Really
beautifully around the value
what
of
to ask. And that was where I kind of fall back.
Ask for what you feel helps to create the beloved community for you and the people who you care about and love. And if that means schools being funded at equitable levels, for your kids and the kids who live on the other side of the tracks and the folks who are on the opposite side of that, then that becomes your demand and that powers the movement. If it is environmental justice that you mad that the minority neighborhoods don't have grocery stores with healthy food options and the same, then that becomes the thing that you go and you do. But I will tell you, it isn't just your local, garden variety issues. It's also, we have the 10th Amendment to the Constitution that carves out the rights of states, and within states, the jurisdictions and municipalities therein appertaining, who also have their own set of rights. And so if you and your community want to say, we're going to be a sanctuary place, or we're a city that's going to do reparations and we value diversity and inclusion in this city because we all do better from it, those are all values that can be stated, advocated, done, and become local law.
And states might be our last holdout. You didn't give up on the court. States might be it. And speaking of holdout, we ain't got no more time to hold out. So this podcast, we got to wrap it, and then we're going to get to
Are we going to do CTAs?
Okay.
Or final question.
Oh, yeah, we do have
there.
Maybe we should answer the viewer question on the mini pod. Our mini pods drop once a week. So be sure to tune into our
One of them
Mini Pod.
days.
Well, just check
Fridays.
our channel.
It'll be
Check
on
our
Friday
channel.
because
We are
Andrew
dropping
got
new
a new
content.
series on Monday.
Yes.
Bless it.
Yes, but constantly check our channel. Make sure you're subscribed to Native Land because then you'll be alerted when there's new content updated there. If you guys don't have CTAs, I have a CTA.
Go
but-
give it.
Okay,
down.
here's my CTA. When you're in public, I don't want to hear your phone conversation. Please use your earbuds. Like, I hate when people are walking down and she's like, yeah, he said it was going to be boom, 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 boom. Please, if you don't mind,
I usually
would
see
like
it as
the entire...
FaceTime.
I don't like it. Use
No,
your
no,
earbuds.
I mean, that's how you hear the whole. I mean, people are walking through grocery stores.
Please, my call to action is use your earbuds. I don't want to hear. It's walking through. I just don't like it. That's my only one.
My call to action is if you don't answer text messages or phone calls, Tiffany and Andrew, you don't get to have no damn phone,
I do.
anything.
It just happens in my own time.
My call
Yes.
to action for y'all and for the people at home is
Yes.
tell your members of Congress, don't go sit their behinds in that chamber on Tuesday to watch the State of the Union.
Yeah.
That's my call to action. I really want to talk about Jamal.
Oh, okay. So on the mini pod, we didn't get a chance to fill you in, but essentially a Fox News personality misrepresented Pastor Jamal Harris Bryant. And anyway, we're going to get into that on the mini pod. So if you're watching this on Thursday, be sure to tune into the mini pod because we're going to talk about media and the violence that is promoted from the increasingly extreme right zealots who are being encouraged for this kind of violence. And eventually, I believe it's going to come knocking at our front door, as it did with our friend of the show and our personal friend, Pastor Jamal Harrison Bryant. So we'll get into that.
We have a guest.
So we'll get into that on the mini pod. And any other announcements that we have for the folks? No?
We
Okay.
loving them. Close out Black History Month strong.
You know what we need to do?
What?
That was my whole point in bringing up
What?
support your own. Let's build our own. We are in a space that Tiffany occupies every Wednesday now that is held and owned and operated by Roland Martin.
Yes.
And he has the blueprint for what it looks like to build your own. So thank you so much.
Powered by y'all, the viewers.
Exactly. For the people, by the people.
Yes.
And the truth remains unfiltered.
Yes.
Roland Martin Unfiltered films here every day. And he let us share his space. So,
Thank you,
Ro,
Ro.
we thank
We
you so
love
much
you,
for
Ro,
that.
Ro.
That is
Subscribe to Black Star Network.
Yes.
No.
And that is what supporting Black people looks like. We're going to be supporting our own because you know what? We turn the TV off.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I definitely
No,
didn't
I'm
want to
glad
be
you
here.
did.
I
I
forgot.
don't want Roro to think we didn't
We in
acknowledge
here.
him.
I'm
Yes.
grateful.
Yes.
We appreciate you, brother. Love
And
you.
the studio, y'all can't see, but
It's
it's
dope.
so nice. It's so
dope.
nice. Anyway, just another reminder to please leave a review and subscribe to Native Land Pod wherever you get your platforms.
And we didn't
YouTube.
say thank you from the show.
Oh,
thank
Native
you.
Land Pod winning it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh
Thank you.
my
Thank
God.
you. Thank
It's so much
you.
going on, y'all.
Thank
We
you.
won.
It's been a long
Thank
week,
you,
y'all.
guys.
Thank you.
We might
Yes.
be losing on every other side of the world, but we won.
Do you know I feel like NAACP Image Awards were 3 months ago? Like, that's how much news
It
has
feels
been
like
happening
week.
this
15
week.
years ago. But Derek Johnson, President, Ira
Yes.
Sims, Chief of Staff, everybody who voted, no matter how many times you voted, we
We
thank
appreciate you. And congratulations to Joy Reid, who also won
2
her
Image
NAACP
Awards.
Right. So we know that you all value her, even if the network doesn't value her. And by association,
fear
they don't
her.
value you because you voted for her show. So we
And
appreciate
shout
you.
out to everybody else who is in our category. We honor you as
Tremaine,
And all of
Audie
the
Cornish,
nominees,
like
yeah.
everybody, we appreciate you and
for
honor
sure.
you. And Jotega Edie, just because I love
well.
Jotega, she
Yay,
won. She was
Joe won an award. Oh,
honored.
and Kamala won an award too.
And Vice President Harris.
Yes.
Yes.
The President
Yes.
and the Chairman's
Sorry,
Award.
y'all. We rolling through.
Did you say the president who should have won?
No, the President's Award
Oh,
and
I
the
thought
Chairman's
you were like
Award.
the president who should have won.
All right,
nah,
we got
well,
we
that
got to
too.
get
That
out of here
too.
because we got another show.
Welcome
but
home,
I just want to make sure you know
y'all.
new episodes drop every Thursday with special solo pods every Monday and Tuesday. As Angela said, Andrew started his. Don't forget to follow us on social media. Subscribe to all of our text or email on our website at nativelandpod.com. Thank you all so
get all
much
that?
for
You get all
uplifting
that?
us and tuning in every week, voting for us. We cannot do, and I know a lot of you all say it's crosstalk and we can't hear you and it's better when you're in person. We're all in person, which means there is a little bit of less crosstalk. And the more that you all support us, the more often we can be in person together.
Oh.
So please be sure to tune in because it costs money for us all
Invite a
to be in the
friend
room
to the
together.
show. Invite a
Yes,
friend to the show.
yes,
Make that your mission.
And tune in and make sure
Yes.
you subscribe to our YouTube.
yes.
Don
please.
Lemon ain't got up to 500,000 subscribers. We want to meet
Congrats,
Don.
Don.
We don't want to beat Don. We want to meet Don.
We gonna meet
Yes.
him
Yes.
Congrats.
And congrats, Don.
There are
Birthday
614 days until midterm elections. We are your hosts. I'm Tiffany Cross here with Angela Reid and Andrew Gillum.
Yo.
We will see you next time on Native
Welcome
Land Pod.
home, everybody.
Welcome home, y'all.
Thank you for joining the natives. Intentional with the info on all of the latest. Rod, Gillum, and Cross connected to the statements that you leave on our socials. Thank you sincerely for the patience. Reason for your choice is clear. We're so grateful. Took the oath to execute roles. Yeah, faithful. Preserve, defend, and protect the truth. Even if painful. Welcome home to all of the natives. We thank you.
Native Land Pod is a production of iHeartRadio in partnership with Reason Choice Media. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.